Somewhere in this besieged city, the man known as Dr. Thrax orchestrates his last stand against America. The recent capture of a GLA oil field has cut off the pipeline funding Dr. Thrax and his weapons research. Now, with his enemies closing in, the chemical-wielding warlord threatens to unleash missiles loaded with gamma toxin, among the most deadly nerve agents ever developed. Hoping to avoid an incident even more catastrophic than the Baikonur disaster, the American response is its signature shock and awe campaign. Eliminating Dr. Thrax would surely decimate the GLA's offensive capabilities. Further transmissions may be difficult. This is James Seabury reporting from the field.
SATCOM A4 has confirmation on base location. Visuals are uploading now. Field, please verify status of Toxin production facilities.
Toxin production facilities confirmed, sir.
We have a go upon presentation of final clearance code.
Clearance code is Sierra, Hotel, Oscar, Charlie.
Roger that, Alpha Whiskey Echo. The birds are in the air.
We've tracked Dr. Thrax to this remote location. He's in possession of chemical-tipped missiles and has them prepped for launch. Destroying his toxin storage tanks has slowed him down, but we must move in and secure those missiles before they can be launched. General, due to the civilian presence in this location, you will need to use ground forces to assault the final base and capture the 4 toxin missile sites in the area. Our successful liberation of the oil sites in Almasbad has provided us with additional resources for this operation. Dr. Thrax must be defeated so he can't inflict further terror on the world. General, you must stop him.
Laying the foundation.
Welcome back, General. So I'm gonna feel pretty stupid here because that GLA base that I scanned like 2 seconds ago, they're friendlies, and we'll realize this as soon as you send somebody to them.
Can't do that.
I didn't, so it's gonna be a little bit. Oops. Also, I'm calling a technical foul on the cutscene we were watching. You can't show me an action, the Tomahawk missiles impacting on a chemical plant before it happens. This is not fair.
Infantry won't work well here, General. Our enemy is using toxins in almost every weapon they throw at us.
What's the mission, sir?
This scenario or mission is very much a precursor to a scenario or challenge that we'll see in the future.
Need a point, man? What's the mission, sir? Army's elite.
It's also very annoying because this is like the first thing that happens to you. And thankfully, Toxin rebels don't really do too much damage against buildings, but, you know, it's a little nerve-wracking.
Ready for action.
This is also one of the very few times I'll ever use flashbang grenades, so hey, I get revenge on the AI, I guess.
On the go. Yes, sir.
Oh, they're attacking our base. Special forces here.
It's not nearly as effective against the AI.
Army's elite. Rally point confirmed. In the field. Always prepared. Frequencies open. Comanche here. Moving to new AO.
Need a point, man?
Yes, sir. Got their position. Flying.
The quote-unquote fun thing about all this is that there's not really anything you could do differently in like this setup. In the sense that you can only build so many units and, you know, pump out so many defenses before that first teleport shows up. Now, there are some triggers. I don't really know the specific ones for this map, but there are missions where, well, we've seen it before, like building your first nuke silo, for example, as the Chinese, is what, you know, starts a whole series of actions. Same thing with if you accumulate enough money, etc., etc. Now, considering the type of units that we'll be fighting against, also, don't waste superpowers on the friendly units. Which I was just told that they were friendly, and so feel even worse for having done what I did. There's a reason why I'm skipping through all of this, by the way. There's not much I can really do to make this interesting at the start. You don't really have anything to start with other than a command center and 2 bulldozers. You don't have all that much money, and frankly, the pressure's always on you, so going on the offensive takes a little bit. Now, what I can say is that you should absolutely rush 1, free money, and your superpowers, or super weapons, as well as using any and all of the GLA starting troops you have, and having them guard the northernmost or northwesternmost Stinger site.
Yes, send out those rocket bombs. Comanche here. Visibility clear.
Warning, sneak attack detected.
Frequencies open. Visibility clear.
Our base is being attacked,
Our
sir.
base is
They
under
built a
attack.
tunnel network inside our base without us knowing it.
Visibility clear. Got the position.
It also becomes very important to just spam rocket pods if and when you get them, which you absolutely should.
Want to make some improvements?
Scorpion tank.
Clocked in. Always ready.
In
Warning,
the field.
scud storm detected.
Air cover's on the way.
Now, provided I can get my power back up, I shouldn't really have an issue with taking out that Scud Storm.
Comanche
Any
here.
more projects?
No more supplies.
There's 2 major reasons why we want to go with a lot of super weapons. Also, unfortunately, you can't target attack a ground unit even if you know it exists within a space. For some reason, it just won't damage them. I don't know if it's because I would have to be hitting the specific pixel they're on or something else. So the reasons why getting mass super weapons is really good: 1, they're super weapons. It's hard to say that super weapons aren't worthwhile. More importantly, though, there is a trigger regarding where you move and getting past a certain perimeter. And if you cross that perimeter line, you end up essentially just making your life a lot harder for you.
Nav system set.
Pilot of the USA. Where do you need me?
Also, yeah, there's a tendency for the AI to always be able to eject a full defense network, or a tunnel network. They're not always full, mind you, but it's frequent enough that it gives me, in particular, a lot of trouble. Now, granted, you can get a lot of free kills if you toss some A-10s at it,
General,
but
the main objective
yeah,
is to
nonetheless
locate the 4
annoying.
Toxin missile silos targeted on U.S. major metropolitan areas before they
Always
launch.
ready. Getting to work. Clocked in.
Now, one thing I didn't do, and frankly, if you're going to play this, you probably should,
Any more projects?
you shouldn't avoid building a very dense base.
Gunship reporting in.
I mean, the long way is doing how I'm doing, basically. Load up on super weapons, get a bunch of Comanches, and essentially just make your base as dense and unnavigatable as possible.
Being attacked. Comanche here.
There's 2 main benefits for this. The first is that you make it impossible for a tunnel network to ever show up in your base, which is great. And secondly, if you have Comanches, you kind of limit anything that Toxin Rebels can do.
Ready for action.
Yeah.
You'll lose the occasional dozer, depending on where they spawn anyways, but that's about the worst that happens.
Keeping it cool. No obstacles.
Intel says that the missile sites we are looking for are in this region. Use caution and make sure those toxins aren't released.
Building capture complete. Building capture complete.
Comanche here. Frequencies open. Making a sweep.
If I was a little bit smarter, I would have probably had a bunch of tank hunters created at the start and sent them over to that western oil field,
Have a job for
just to sort of prevent any issues with losing them.
Moving to new AO. Visibility clear.
Let's get the action. All finished.
Particle cannon ready. Particle cannon activated. Congratulations, General. You have been promoted.
We also have, thankfully, 2 new general upgrades.
Want to make some improvements?
They're attacking our base.
Unit lost.
Sadly, the airfield's very vulnerable to anthrax bomb. So the 2...
Built a tunnel network inside our base without us knowing it.
Yeah, you've already told us that. So there's 2 upgrades that we... or one upgrade to a super weapon, which is very unique.
Unit lost.
But also one other new... or 2 other super weapons that are new.
Point man, I've seen it.
So we've already seen the fuel air bomb. That can actually be upgraded to what we saw in the first mission, the Moab, or Mother of All Bombs. The second, or first new power that we're getting is the gunship. Reaper gunship, I think it's called. It's
Intel
pretty
says
cool.
that the missile sites we are looking for are in this region. Use caution and make sure those toxins aren't released.
Now, sadly, the gunship got shot down there, but essentially it beelines it to, like an Aurora bomber, makes it to its location, and then just hovers around and takes out anything within the area. It's very strong and should always be used when possible.
Any more projects? Deadly efficient.
Unit lost.
Frequencies open.
Our
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, there's something about the UI where it just never really compensates for the ability of having multiple factions. So you don't get to use the same powers or the powers as easily as you would for your main faction or the one you start as. It's kind of a pain in the ass because you want to maximize the ability to use, gamma bombs and so on, but you're always just sort of frustrated by not being able to call them in at the proper interval. It should probably be noted that the gunship, I don't really know if it has a targeting priority. I don't understand why it targets one over the other. It might have something to do with what's closer to the center, but frankly, I think I'd have to read a couple wikis to truly understand what the targeting algorithm is.
Train for perfection. Let's see what you got. This is too easy.
I'm listening.
Deadly efficient.
particle cannon ready. Unit lost.
So the one thing that was confusing me the last time, or since I haven't played this in a long time, is that to upgrade the fuel air bomb to the Moab, you actually have to go to the strategic center. And I'm sure I missed that for the first, hour I played of this mission.
Unit lost.
Also, sadly, I just lost Burton.
Yes, sir. Gunship reporting in the field. Visibility clear. Comanche here. Yes, sir.
$4,000, pretty hefty price, but frankly, if you've got the money for it, you might as well. The one upgrade I didn't bother with is the leaflet drop. I grabbed it once by accident, and I was quickly reminded as to why I try to always skip it. Essentially, it demoralizes infantry. I believe it acts like an EMP bomb, except to infantry. And that's all well and good, I suppose, but is there really a reason for me to ever pick a leaflet drop over a gunship or an extra A-10 strike? Even Pathfinders, it doesn't really make too much sense to me to opt out of such other great powers just for a leaflet. Speaking of, it's also airdropped, so it doesn't really work against high air defense locations.
Frequencies open. How about those rocket projects?
Unit lost.
Comanche here. In the field.
Particle cannon ready.
Comanche here. Flying low. Yes, sir.
I know I purchased the upgrade, but I don't think I've really dwelled on it at all either. There's a upgrade for aircraft. Essentially drops flares or chaff, whatever you want to call it, or ascribe to it. I'm pretty sure it's flares though. And essentially, it's supposed to reduce the amount of times that aircraft get hit by rockets. It doesn't really work too well against quad cannons. Admittedly, this is one of those levels that would probably be a lot better for an Aurora bomber. You would essentially just have a bunch of them on guard duty, and then they can plow through, well, whatever. Especially against the buildings, it's pretty important when you're having to go through the entire map. Now, contrary to real life, Moabs don't really take out tunnel networks or holes underneath it. Makes it a little less fun or important to use.
As you request. Yes, I understand.
Unit lost.
No. I will do my best. I will do this.
And this is why you always keep at least like 3 jeeps with people that can capture stuff.
Lighters.
Also, notice how there's now a timer at the bottom right.
Raid in progress. Taking charge. Special forces here.
This specifically only happens after you cross a specific line, and I believe the line is towards the main base rather than anywhere else. So don't be aggressive at the start. All you do is cause yourself a bunch of issues.
Toxin missile silos targeted on U.S. major metropolitan areas before they launch. Scud Storm launched. The first missile silo has been captured and the hazmat decontamination team is en route. Good job, sir. The second missile silo has been captured. 2 to go.
I will do my best.
Always prepared.
Scud storm ready.
Light tank of the GLA.
Looks like a good run.
Special
Particle
forces here.
cannon
Deadly
ready.
efficient.
Scud storm launched.
Yeah, it's probably not fair to be able to just blanket and half the map with super weapons, but yeah, they deserved it.
Activated.
Also note how strong it is for terrorist cycles, or terror cycles I guess they're called, that are camouflaged and can drive, making regular terrorists a joke, really.
God, Scorpion tank. Got room for 5.
Army's elite. On the go.
No lack of
Unit
courage.
lost.
Right here. I'll take anything you get.
I will do my best.
Particle cannon ready. Particle cannon activated.
I think one point that's also rather subtle, doesn't really come in too much, or at least it will in a future mission,
Colonel Burton here.
but because the GLA have lost their command centers, I don't actually have to worry about gamma bombs or anything of the sort anymore.
Deadly
No
efficient.
lack of courage.
It's a nice little catch-22 of command centers being necessary to call in general powers,
Scorpion.
and
I've seen it all.
if you simply use a bunch of super weapons, you're fine.
No lack of courage.
Gunship reporting in.
Particle cannon ready. Particle cannon activated.
Trained for perfection. I'll be there.
Scorpion tank. Light tank of the
Gunship
GLA.
in.
Okay, everybody
Ready
out.
for action. Taking charge. Always prepared. Ready for action. Always prepared.
And with that, we're basically done. There's no way for the GLA to stop us. We're going to capture all 4 of the rocket centers, so
Reporting in.
Our will is strong. No lack of courage.
Good job, sir. The third missile silo has been lost. captured. Great work.
Let's see what you got.
We now have control of all
Let's
4
see what
Toxin
you got.
missile silos.
No.
The operation is a success.
Gunship reporting in.
Now that Dr. Thrax is defeated, we can finally bring our boys home. Good work, General.
Dr. Thrax and his arsenal of toxic missiles have been destroyed. The cause he served, the Global Liberation Army, has once more been run to ground. Weapons of mass destruction, like those launched from Baikonur, no longer threaten the free world. By land, sea, and air, American troops head home, battle-weary but proud. And as the smoke clears, perhaps we are a step closer.
why would they cut him off?